Oh, this camera is so flashy. Well, it's not, it's just an iPhone, but seems to be recording very well. Let me just adjust this microphone and check all the settings before we get into this live Q&A. Just going to move things about to make sure we're all good. And of course, now that it looks like we are live, I will encourage everyone to hit that thumbs up button before we even start, just because it's a good thing to do. Otherwise, we might just get straight into it. Just got to make sure all the settings are good. Notifications are being sent out. Excellent. We are about to be ready to start recording the May live Q&A on the Rugby Muscle YouTube channel, and this will then subsequently stream or be posted up to the Rugby Muscle podcast. So welcome everyone. This is our May live Q&A edition of the Rugby Muscle podcast. I'm your host as always, TJ. I'm a strength and conditioning specialist who works with amateur rugby players all over the world. Also a certified nutritionist. So we try and give this whole rounded approach when we look at rugby muscle. And if you have any questions pertaining to any of that stuff, today is your chance to ask those questions and get them answered live. If you are watching on the YouTube channel whilst I adjust this camera, past the fact, nope, that camera's going to fall. Let's kickstart. That's better. There we go. If you have any questions and you're not watching on the live stream, still pop them in the comments and they will go through to the June Q&A. People miss that. I think they think they've missed the live Q&A and then they don't bother asking a question. And then because they don't ask that question, it just gets lost in the ether. I don't know, it just gets lost and then the questions never come up. So if you have any questions, I implore you, put them in the comments below, especially on the YouTube channel. But also, I believe this is streaming to the Facebook group as well. So if you wish to ask questions there, that's also fine. I think on the Facebook group, you can even ask them anonymously, which is kind of weird. I wouldn't encourage you to do that. Like, it's all good. We're all mates here. You don't have to be anonymous. It's just about getting better as a rugby player. So, ways that you can support the podcast, make sure that you are hitting the thumbs up button on the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed on the YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed on whichever podcast platform you use. And I like the Spotify's 5 stars. That's you guys have been doing a really good job of hitting those 5 stars. I really do appreciate it. But if any of you that are listening on Apple Podcasts, feel free to hit that 5 stars and actually type up a quick review, because that also bumps up the feed in other podcast streams. Although it looks like, from what I can tell, Spotify has really taken over in the world of podcasts. So I know a lot of you, we're getting a lot of new listeners from that, but I know a lot of you don't use Spotify. So if you could go to Apple Podcasts and hit a 5-star review and just type up a few words, that would mean the world to me. Thank you so much. See, I was going to say, look at the upgrades that the 5-star reviews have got us, but this is just what Apple has done. This new continuity camera is pretty special. Now, of course, whoa, where are we going now? Come back down here, camera. There we go. Now, of course, if you're watching on the live feed, give us a thumbs up. Make sure that, because then that also bumps it to everyone else who is who is joining us at this time, and gives us more questions, hopefully, so we can get a better show going. And now, without further ado, we'll get into the questions that are on the live feed first, because those will get priority. And there's also a bunch of questions that I've got. Actually, there's only 3, I think, this week that I've got lined up from the feed on the YouTube channel and the community tab. So we'll start by getting into the first question on the live. I don't know why it says Facebook user rather than just whoever this is. In fact, I'm going to quickly look who it is. It's Ian. What's up, Ian? He says, how do you get over losing the season-ending final by, not me, knocking on over the try line? Oh my goodness. In the 82nd minute to lose 30-24 after coming back 24-0 at half-time. Now, there is two ways I would look at getting over this final. Number one, right, is looking back and saying, okay, looking back and then looking forward. Those are the two different ways. So if we look back, right, we say, okay, this person knocked it on over the try line. Is that the reason that we lost the game? No. We were 24-0 down at half time. That's you're already up against it. That one instance of knocking the ball on over the try line is not what's caused this loss. The fact that you've conceded 30 points has caused this loss, right? You needed that try to win it. Yes, it's heartbreaking. Yes, it's a really frustrating situation, but no, it's all you're already trying to recover from a bad situation. That bad situation's got nothing to do with knocking the ball on over the try line, right? There's so many things. It's like the same thing when I see people always blaming the ref on one ref decision. And it's like the game is over 80 minutes long. To put it down to one thing is kind of ridiculous, right? And that's the way the sport is. It's the way any sport is, right? It's judged on it's the outcome seems to hinge on very small pivotal moments, but actually it's not. Those are just the moments that we notice, right? There could have been 5 moments in that game where there was a 2-on-1 that no one really saw that could have been easily recovered for, or converted for a try. There could have been moments where, in a try that you conceded where there was a missed tackle or maybe something not as obvious as that. Maybe something where there were 3 people gathered around the ruck and they chose not to get into the defensive line so that the attacking team end up having numbers and scoring a try. There are so many little things that go unnoticed that it's silly just to reflect on the few things that you do notice. And not only is it silly to reflect on those things and say that, that's and feel bad about them, but it's also foolish to say that those are the only reasons you lost that game. Then you also can, we can look back even further, right? We can look back to all the other instances and unknown instances in that game, but you can also look back to, okay, have we all prepared as best we can as a group, right? So that's 25 other people for months leading up to this final. There are probably a few things that you could do better, which would have, again, given you a better chance of winning this final. At the same time, right, you may be as prepared as possible and you're comfortable with, okay, we got as good as we could get and we still lost. That's okay. Now we look forward and we look back and we look forward and we say, okay, what can we do better? What can we improve upon? What were the training mistakes? What were the things that we could improve upon? I'm not talking about not dropping the ball over the line. We're talking about, have we had good attendance at practice? Have we been focused for the full duration of practice? Have we showed up to practice week after week, month after month with individual things that we want to work on? That's a huge area that I think a lot of people miss out upon, is showing up to practice and saying, okay, I'm going to just work on my left-handed passing in training. And so you put yourself on the left-hand side of the pitch so that you have to constantly give those left-handed passes. Don't hide away from your weaknesses. Work on your weaknesses. Maybe it's that you've never been lifted in the line-out or you're not a regular line-out jumper. Put yourself in there and become a regular line-out jumper or a harder carry and put yourself up for more carries. Put yourself into positions where you can improve in training and you will get better, right? Have things that you've got to work on. And that means that you don't even necessarily have to have done something wrong in the previous season to work on that. You've just got weaknesses or holes in your game or areas of your game that you want to improve. And so you go forward and go, okay, we got to the final. We lost by 1 score that we could have even got. Now I'm going to go forward to this next season and we're all going to work on, all these different things. We're going to be so much better that this other team, if they are at the same level, we're going to fucking wipe the floor with them. That's what I would say to getting over a lost like that, because it's one thing losing to that team, and it's one thing having a real good competitive match. Now, another thing, knowing that you're probably going to meet a team of that standard again and being even more prepared, right? It's a continual game. If this person is retiring forever, you could still learn lessons from that and move forward to whatever other pursuits you do with your life. But I would say if you're still continually playing rugby, if you're still playing rugby, it's a continual improvement. The end of the season isn't the end of, like, that's not it. That's not just like, it's like there's a famous, there's quite a viral clip of an NBA guy going about. I think he's in the NBA, and he's talking about failure, and he was saying about, do you ask for a raise every year that you from your job? Chances are no, but does that mean you've succeeded or failed? Who knows? It's all on a spectrum, and just because a rugby season has a hard stop, right, doesn't mean that that's the end, like, of that. Like, it's a continual evolution and continual improvement. All right, we will go to one of the preloaded questions before answering. Actually, speaking of which, sorry, before I wrap that question up, we will be getting, I did see that one of the preloaded questions is an off-season question, so maybe I'll get into that next. Actually, yes, I will. Where is that preloaded question? This one. So here, this person says, in terms of off-season conditioning, is it best to do hypertrophy then strength block, or a blend of both strength and hypertrophy at the same time, and then focus on power later in pre-season? Okay, so first and foremost, I will have bit of an off-season guide ideas video coming out within the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. But my overall summary of this stuff is that I think you should still, your off-season, is almost a default to where people just say, okay, now I'm just going to get huge and I'm just going to lift weights every day. I'm not sure if that's the best approach, right? And even with this one, right, this person has just spoke about, do I do hypertrophy and then strength? You're not a power lifter, and you're not a bodybuilder. So those aren't the main focuses. They are a component to rugby strength and conditioning. And they're a component that if you train in the weight room even 2 times a week, you're going to get most of your improvement out of. Doubling that, so going from 2 weight sessions to 4 weight sessions, isn't going to give you anywhere near double the improvement, but it's going to cost you double the amount of time. So that's something that you've got to consider, right? Yes, you've got more time in the off season to lift weights, but you've also got more time to do conditioning. You've got more time to do power work. You've got more time to do speed work. You've got more time to really work on your movement. Potentially go to a field with a buddy and spend time working on your skills. As I said in the previous question, think about if you had been asked, or you added a 4th session onto a 3-day weight regime, right? How much extra gains would you expect to get? I'll let you answer that question, right? Compared to if you switched from, you kept your 3-day weights, right? But you added in 1 skill day per week, and you spent 40 minutes to an hour just working on your skills. And you did that for 12 weeks. How much better would your skills be? And then you take those 2 scenarios, how much better a rugby player would you be with either of those? Something to think about, right? Now, as far as doing strength and hypertrophy at the same time, or hypertrophy and then strength, you're kind of always doing both, especially as a natural athlete, as an athlete that is looking for hypertrophy and strength as a small factor in your overall performance. And so what I would say is, like, you would just, I think you kind of training them both at the same time. I would just start lighter and gradually build those loads throughout your 3 or 4 month off season, right? So your 12 to 16 weeks. I would start fairly lighter, just to give the tissues a rest, just to give yourself a rest from all the impact that you're doing potentially. Start higher reps, and then you gradually increase that load. You'd increase that load in terms of like absolute load, right? So if you're benching, I don't know, 70 kilos, that load is at the beginning of preseason, off season, that load is going to slowly increase just because you get stronger. But also, I would increase the relative load. So what you would be doing is, rather than doing 10 reps or maybe you start your off season on 15 reps on the lighter days or 12 reps or whatever. Over time, I would slowly work down to 6 to 8 reps even on the lighter days. So you would do one. So if you were doing heavier day and lighter day, you would start at maybe 6 to 8 reps on the heavy days and 15 or so reps on the lighter days, and you would work that slowly down to 2 to 3 reps on the heavy days and 6 to 8 reps on the lighter days, and therefore you're constantly increasing that load. Therefore, pushing yourself strength wise, but also you're increasing that load, which should also lead to some hypertrophy. And then you can even go heavier than that, as far as just doing one heavy day and one power day as you get into preseason. Now, power is an interesting one that you asked about, because power is not necessarily just built. Yes, it's mostly built, with that explosive movement in that low rep ranges, but you also want to do some level of accommodation work, whereby you work in 10 to 20 reps of jumps at a low level, just so you get that movement down and your tissues get used to firing together, so you can jump efficiently, or you can bound efficiently, or you can hop efficiently, or you can throw a medicine ball and just keep that repeated power. That stuff can be done right at the beginning of off season. There's nothing to say that you don't need, you have to take time off of that. If you were to train power, month one of off season, not train it for another 2 or 3 months and then go straight into preseason, that would be a waste of time, because you would have lost those power gains. But if you continually keep it moving and keep it progressing throughout off season, I think you could hit preseason firing, and then you potentially you don't need to do all your power work anymore, because you're expressing that power in rugby and it won't drop off. Same thing for speed, right? If you're someone that's slow, and same thing for any component in the off season. If you've got a glaring weakness, take your time to address that weakness in the off season, and it will pay off. You don't just have to work speed in preseason. You could spend 3 or 4 months working on your speed in the off season if you're glaringly slow, and actually, then hit preseason and you're faster than ever. Now, actually thinking about that, right? A lot of people listen to this, need to work their condition or could be fitter. So again, the common thing to say is, we've got to, work weights and get bigger and get stronger. You're not going to necessarily massively speed up that process by adding in an extra, 25% of extra work, or even doubling your work, right? You're still not going to progress significantly faster. But if you replace those extra sessions with more conditioning, with more aerobic conditioning, you might hit preseason fitter than ever and really be pushing the boat. Because another thing with off season that you must consider is that if you're not doing any conditioning in your off season, you're going to regress, because a lot of amateur players in particular, their Saturday game day and their Tuesday training, their hard training, that's the majority of their conditioning. Now, if you're in the off season, you lose that opportunity to work on your conditioning. So not only are you're not working on your conditioning in the gym or out, with your strength and conditioning program, but you're actually missing out on all of the side benefits of conditioning that you would have got from your rugby. And so you're going to regress with that, and you're putting on weight. It's a recipe for disaster. So make sure that you are getting in your conditioning. And in fact, a lot of you that could work on your conditioning, that might even need to be a focus. Because if you're already progressing your strength work and your hypertrophy work, because it takes months, years to get better at, there's no need to up that and to try and force feed yourself. Because all that's going to happen is you're going to put on fat, because you're so focused on trying to bulk, and you're going to waste your time. So I think I'll explain this more detailed in the off-season video that's coming out once its camera stops flying around, and that will give you a more coherent guideline to follow. But the overall approach here is, don't think of off-season as just hitting the weights and just getting bigger and stronger. It should be all the components that make you a better rugby player. This camera, like, I can't use my hands when this camera because it just flies up. Oh, it doesn't. Now, all right, whatever. Hopefully that answers that question for you. Oh, we have another question on the live one. I'm going to find out who this is as well. I don't know why it says Facebook user instead of the name. Sophie. She says, "Hey TJ, previous rugby player here. Worked with you for a bit, yeah. Now I've turned BJJ white belt and going to start competing. Woo! Maybe you noticed that because of the t-shirt here. I'm actually competing on Sunday as well, so I'm looking forward to it. I've found strength power reps to be what would you say the best bang for your buck area of training focus would be? For a BJJ white belt, it would be training BJJ. This is something. So there are massively, there are huge carryovers or not carryovers, similarities between BJJ and rugby training, particularly if you're looking to compete. Like, they're both focused on like explosive, powerful movements that make the difference, but they're also all completely fueled by having a really strong, robust aerobic system, particularly when you're looking at competing, because people think, a BJJ match is no more than 5 to 10 minutes, but you in a competition, you're doing 3 or 4 of those or even more, and you're doing them, it's even the same thing for sevens. Maybe BJJ is a lot more like sevens, where it's, explosive bouts that are fueled by the aerobic system. She follows this up by saying, do you think training outside of rolling over 10 hours a week or around 10 hours a week is necessary? Looks like you're killing a nogi. So I would, again, this is so similar to rugby in that if you're new to a sport, the best thing you're going to, the thing that's holding you back the most, and this is what I say to new guys to rugby. So if you're new to rugby, replace this with what I'm saying about BJJ with rugby. The newer you are to a sport, the biggest thing that's going to hold you back is your proficiency at that sport, right? You're not going to circumvent learning the sport by getting stronger, more powerful, more explosive, more mobile, any of that stuff. That stuff can give you a little bit of an X factor and can help you progress faster, but you still need to go through that ladder of learning and feeling the movements. In rugby, it's learning and watching the plays and how a play develops, etc. And so what I would suggest for a lot of people, and this is not a thing that you should say if you're running a company that specializes in strength and conditioning, but a lot of people, your strength and conditioning, especially your strength, if you're strong enough, should be put on maintenance for the first year or so that you're trying to learn this new sport, because all of your physical improvements are going to be technical adjustments. They're going to be proprioceptive. They're going to be feeling how to roll better, or in a match feeling how to carry better and adjust and hit a ruck better, or tackle better and complete a tackle better, or get into a turnover, because that's a completely foreign movement, right? In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's so many different completely foreign movements that, rather than just talk about techniques, it's more about feeling it and how you feel when you're under attack, or how you feel when you're going to be swept and what to do. That stuff is only developed by playing the game, right? And so the more time you can spend doing that, the better. Now, what you would still need to do is not make the mistake that I made when I first started doing jiu-jitsu, was whereby I basically stopped lifting because it got really boring to me. And that's because I got burnt out on lifting. I'd spent 2 years having retired from rugby, just lifting, and I was so burnt out, and I was so happy that I found jiu-jitsu, but then that made my lifting really boring. And it was only pandemic times where I got a new enthusiasm for the complement of lifting and jiu-jitsu. Now, for you guys, it could be lifting and rugby. They really do complement each other well, but you can't really like say that more lifting on top of just the base that's necessary is going to increase your ability to play rugby. Likewise, just getting like again, it's the same thing I would say for jiu-jitsu. You only need 2 sessions a week to get stronger, more powerful, more explosive, even bigger to a certain aspect, right? Because these gains come on so slow. So that's all you would need to do. That's what I would do. That's what I currently do for my jiu-jitsu. I train twice a week in the gym, and then the rest of my stuff is spent doing jiu-jitsu. Now, it's different for rugby players because you've only got your 2 sessions a week as a team, right? To improve, work on those skills. So Sophie here is rolling 10 hours a week, right? You're probably not going to have the ability to do that as a rugby. So then you look at, okay, what can I still do? Oh, right, I can go for a longer run, or I can work on my skills on my own as far as like passing, or I can, really work on my conditioning, or I can work on my speed, right? But it's not necessary just to think, I've got more time, all I'm going to do is lift more and more and more. Now, bang for your buck area of trainer focus, that would be doing the sport as much as you can. You're not just going to do the sport as intense. Like, you're going to make that approach that I said for the player who was getting over there in the previous question, who was getting over, knocking the ball over the try line. You're going to have the approach that it's okay to you come in with things that you want to work on. It's okay to mess up because you're working on these new things. You're going to mess up because you're working on a new thing. If you only work on the things that you're really solid at, you're going to hold yourself back. Same thing that so many rugby players do, where they play to their strengths and they hide their weaknesses at training because they're afraid of showing their weaknesses, potentially being dropped, or just making a mistake in front of everyone. You can only get better if you make mistakes, because that's you exposing yourself to areas of weakness. So like shed that approach, or shed that mindset, right? Be okay with losing a lot. Be okay with, like, I'm a purple belt, and there are times where a white belt kind of might tap me because I put myself in really terrible positions because I want to practice those positions, or I try something brand new. And I don't just abort it because it's not working. I really try and feel how it's supposed to feel with my new techniques. So hopefully that isn't too much of a BJJ nerdy question or answer, that those that aren't doing jiu-jitsu, that those that are rugby players can see those parallels there. And I really do think that there are huge parallels. And actually, there are so much parallels that I have 2 people that I work with that are jiu-jitsu athletes. Actually, 1 judo, 1 jiu-jitsu athlete. So and that's why I still do what I do and train how I train. I basically use the rugby muscle templates to train for myself as a jiu-jitsu athlete, and I just keep everything really to maintenance. So no more than 2 weight sessions a week are really necessary. But I would get in your 2 sessions a week just to make sure that you're slowly still building that strength, building that power, and addressing areas of weakness that aren't necessarily touched on in jiu-jitsu, like full range of motion, right? You're not in jiu-jitsu, it's lots of like jerking motions and small explosive, but not full contraction. So that's what I would work on. Take a pause for the cause. If you are joining us on the live, this has been quite fun so far. I'd love those thumbs up, particularly on the YouTube, because that sends it out to everyone. But thumbs up, any comments, any questions. I think we've still got another one here on YouTube to get through. And then one more of the preloaded questions. We're already 30 minutes in. Can you believe it? Thank you for Sophie for saying I'm killing Logie. I'm doing all right. It's now my sport for fun. It's not my sport for glory. All right. Giac Behu. How would that's how I would say it. Giac Behu. If that's wrong, type your name in phonetically in the comments if you're still here, and I'll pronounce that better. He says, I'm 20, almost 21, and restarted playing rugby after a 4-year stop. Welcome back. Great decision. I'm 167 centimeters tall, 65 kg. Do I believe I should weigh more to be competitive? Most of the rugby players at my height are bigger. You'd need to be stronger. Like, you can always be stronger. I wouldn't necessarily focus on just getting as big as possible. This is a mistake that a lot of people make, and it's kind of one I've already alluded to, and I sort of harp on about at this point, is like gaining muscle is a... Oh, here we go. Giacomo Begotti. Okay, perfect. And I pronounced that Italian even before I saw it was Italian. So shout out to you, mate. You could be bigger, but like the main focus here is being strong. And like those two, like getting big and getting strong, are so intertwined that sometimes like it's always going to be on a scale, and sometimes separating them is a fool's errand. Like getting bigger is going to help you get stronger, and getting stronger is going to help you get bigger. So you just focus on doing those two, like lifting heavy enough, that's going to get you bigger. You don't have to work a hypertrophy rep range. You can just really focus on getting stronger and eating a lot, and hopefully gaining something like a kilo to maybe 2 kilos a month, seeing that scale slowly go up and making sure that your body fat doesn't go up too high. You'll be able to judge this, right? But it's a long, patient process that you need to go through. But if you gain a kilo a month, that's 10 kilos, 12 kilos, in a year. That's a lot, right? Now, 1 kilo in a month or 2 kilos over 8 weeks of hard work, and you only see your scale go up by 2 kilos, it's not overly impressive. But that's a realistic amount, especially when you put it in the context that I just said there. And if you're lifting heavy enough and you're really pushing it, then you're going to get stronger. You can also then give yourself time to get more explosive, do all that sort of things. But I don't like recommending like certain. I don't even like recommending how much you should lift, because it is all relative. It's all about how you play rugby. Right, you need to get strong enough. You need to get big enough. But where that is like, who knows? Because like a lot of people would say Cheslin Colby has to be bigger, right? Or Harry Randall, right? He's tiny, but the way he plays, he doesn't need to get bigger. He's still really effective at how he plays. Now, is he working at getting strong? I'm sure he is, but he's also probably still working on getting more explosive and faster at the same time as well. And so, when you realize that, like, because size is a thing that you see, right? Every time you see a person, you see their size, right? Anytime you go up to a training session, you see your teammates that look big, you're like, you see that immediately. But what takes a lot more time to consider is actually how does each individual player play rugby? Some people are big and they really don't use their size. Some people are a lot smaller and they're really difficult to bring down because they're really aggressive. So I would put, and that's more important than the size. It's just less obvious until you watch people play game after game after game, right? And that's way more important. And that's what rugby is about. It's about being a better rugby player, not being bigger or being stronger. This gym culture, this gym bro culture that is starting to get bigger and bigger and bigger with, I think it's with TikTok and Instagram, right? Encourages size over everything and strength over everything and all this stupid stuff, but like those are 10 to 30 second clips that don't appreciate the years that go into building, or years and genetics, right, that go into building size and strength. You might be someone that just cannot get big, as far as like getting really, really huge, and that's okay. Just get as big as you're comfortable with and play at your best. Take one more sip. The coffee's finished, but the water's still here. With that, also after answering all of those questions, something I should have said for all of those is go to rugby-muscle.com/team. Check out Team Rugby Muscle, because I do think that is the solution, right? you know you're going to be doing enough strength work with sorry, I need to explain it. Team Rugby Muscle is my strength and conditioning program. It is year round, working on all aspects to improve you as a rugby player. It's delivered through our app, which is getting worked on by the day. It's now at a point where it's seamless. So all you do every time you step into the gym, you just open up the app, you figure out you see what the work is for that day, and you take care of business. Sometimes, and more, I'd say less often than you'd think, you're not actually going into the gym. You're going and doing some conditioning work, or you're having a day off and you can enjoy yourself and you can just watch rugby. That's a late answer to that question from before. If you know, another big bang for your buck, if you're someone new to rugby or you're new to a new sport, watch that sport as often as possible, right? That, like, learn what the people at the high level do so that you can then try and emulate that when you go. So, especially for rugby, but also definitely for jiu-jitsu. Like, spending time doing that, again, actually could give you more bang for your buck than just doing an extra strength session. So with Team Rugby Muscle, you don't have to go to the gym more than 2 times a week, but we set, I think it's anywhere between 2 to 5 total sessions for the week. You can repeat those. You also have skill work in there. You have complete guidance on how to structure everything. And every 3 weeks, there are small, subtle changes to the program. Every 6 weeks, the program will change out some lifts, will progress. It's completely progressive throughout the year so that you never have to think about it, right? You know that you're constantly improving in all areas with certain focuses of rugby, and therefore you are going to revolutionize the way you play. Even for jiu-jitsu, like I say, I run a very similar program for myself. I would say Team Rugby Muscle would be a perfect option for you as well. You would just potentially not have to worry about the speed work, and you would just recover. But for rugby players, I've tried to make it as much of a no-brainer as possible that this is the program that you should do. And you'll find it I'll put it in the description below after this, or you can just go to rugby-muscle.com/team, and that is where you will find the ultimate rugby strength and conditioning program that lasts the year. Now, you will also find that program, particularly if you're on the podcast, actually wherever you're going to be listening to this, you will find this program at a cheaper price than it's ever been. And that's because I've been really doing some thinking about the amount of times I've received correspondence from people that are really keen to get in on the program, but just say, the amount of times I've heard the phrase, just this year, we all know these times are hard or times are tough. And I feel like if I'm making this a difficult decision for someone to join Team Rugby Muscle, I'm doing it wrong. And so we've reduced the price by 30 or 40% on the monthly subscription. So go check that out, sign up, and I'll see you guys on the inside. Next question, Felipe says, opinion of stairs for rugby conditioning between 120 to 160 BPM. I would say if it's static and you're doing 160, that's way too high. Way too high. I wouldn't go above 140. It can be good, particularly if you're someone that's like struggling to put on leg mass, just getting extra. Well, you can see this from 2 lenses. If you're someone that needs to get more work through the legs, like you can do some heavy leg work and work on your leg hypertrophy, and then also add in extra stairs for the conditioning just to push them for more work. Is that going to, the theory would be, okay, then you're building up your slow twitch fibers in the legs, particularly whilst doing your aerobic conditioning. That could help. You could also suggest that doing that is just going to be too much and you're not giving your legs a chance to recover from the heavy, strength work, your squats, your RDLs, your lunges, your heavy work that you're doing to improve your leg strength and power for rugby is going to be compromised by the fact that you're doing stairs for your aerobic conditioning. Now, it depends how hard you're going, but I would say probably not the best idea. I would say, if you look on the YouTube video or on the podcast for the most underrated rugby conditioning tool there is, or protocol there is, it's low intensity. Spoiler alert: it's low intensity steady state. It's difficult to do stairs at a significantly low enough intensity, or a low enough intensity that it then, you get the benefits of that low intensity, i.e. aerobic work, i.e. a more efficient heart pulmonary system, i.e. better aerobic conditioning that fuels everything else that you're doing. And also on top of that, even if you do stay in that range, it's the reason I sometimes will tell people to do the elliptical over going out for a run. I know it sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but I do tell people to do the elliptical over going out for a long run, simply because doing a long run or doing the stairs as well would probably would go under this, can end up giving you a level of muscular fatigue that is going to impact later sessions. The beauty of low intensity steady state work, the beauty of zone 2 work, the beauty of Q work conditioning is that it does not impact subsequent sessions, right? In theory, you should be able to do a solid low intensity steady state session, and it can be running as long as you're running slow enough, and it can be the stairs if you're doing them at a low enough intensity. The beauty of doing that stuff is that you could do an hour of low intensity steady state work, get all the benefits of the conditioning of the aerobic system, etc., and then go ahead even later in that day or the next day and do some heavy strength work and not feel any negative sides from doing that, right? Whereas if you do the conditioning that you've suggested here, where you're going up to 160 BPM, your legs are probably going to be feeling it that day, the next day, and maybe even just systemically you'll feel a little bit fatigued, and that will compromise your strength session. Therefore, you get less out of that strength session for what is no extra benefit of that conditioning session. Okay, final question here. From the community tab on YouTube, Mario asks, do you have a favorite mass gain shake recipe flavor wise, or certain fruits you add? Thank you very much. No, I don't have favorites. I think favorites are I have favorites for 2 weeks, and then I get bored of it because I've done it every single day for 2 weeks, and then I have to change it up. But overall, you want to always be continually rotating so that you're giving yourself like something new, something fresh. Honestly, I have no idea why this camera just keeps shooting up, and now it's gone out. Where are we going? Here we are. We're back. So as far as shakes go, just keep rotating the flavors, keep rotating the fruits. I'd say as tactically wise, right? You probably have some staples of shakes now. Actually, there are some staples that you must include on every shake that you have. I have a shake basically every day. Now, those things are going to be protein powder, but it doesn't matter what it is. I'm not really bothered. Some sort of fruit and a good blender. Maybe I'd also put spinach in there, because you can put spinach into any shake and you just don't taste it. And obviously you get the benefits of having some leafy greens. That would be it. Now, me personally, I like to eat my shakes. I'll drink them if I'm on the run, and I'll just put in a little bit more liquid, but I really like to eat them. I like to eat my food. I don't like to drink it, because I am a man that could eat loads of food forever. So I like to really make it thick, so you're losing lots of ice. Now, you would have 2 tactics here, right? So you've got 2 outcomes for this shake, or a spectrum, I would say, actually, right? One outcome is as low a calorie as possible to keep you as full as possible, so that you can, keep your calories in check. Then the other one is to get as many calories in as possible, so that you can, not have to worry about eating more in other parts. And again, it's all going to be on a spectrum in reality, right? To keep you fuller, and to keep the calories low, we're looking at more and more ice. We're looking at potentially more protein powder. We're looking at berries, like dark berries. We're looking at strawberries. We're looking at blueberries. We're looking at dark berry mixes. Those sorts of things are going to really make the shake thick. Particularly if you I would say 100% buy them frozen, because again, you're getting a thicker shake, and you're not worried about them going off. Just helps with everything. The darker the berries, the more likely is going to be less antioxidants, and probably not going to get more calories for that. Whereas if you go for the lighter fruits, right, on the other side of the coin, where we're trying to get in the calories, we're looking at bananas, mangoes. What else would that be in that? I'd just say bananas and mangoes for now, off the top of my head. Whatever fruit you like, the lighter the fruit, usually the higher. I mean, apples, but I don't put apples in the shake. The lighter the fruit, the more, outside of berries, the more calorific they are going to be, which isn't a bad thing. It's just the way it is. You could also, if you're looking to like get as many calories in for that shake as possible, as he said, mass gain, we're looking at peanut butters, we're looking at nut butters, we're looking at potentially putting some honey in there or some syrup in there. All that stuff would be great. When I'm trying to get my calories as high as I can, usually my shake is going to be a couple hundred grams of bananas, a couple hundred grams of strawberries or some other berry, and then I'll even put some banana on top, because, like I say, I eat my shake. So putting stuff on top is also always going to help. So some cereal on top, maybe some granola, again, if you're looking to get in a lot of calories. Dark chocolate's always good to put on top, or even normal chocolate if you're, again, putting in the calories, that sort of thing. But I don't really have an absolute favorite, but there's some ideas to get going. Maybe the milk that you can use can alter the calories as well, right? So if you're using almond milk, that's always going to be lowering calories, or if you're just using water, lowering calories. Water's obviously going to take away from the flavor, unless you're using a vanilla protein, then usually doesn't make too much of a difference. But a nice thick soy milk is my favorite, and again, bumps up the calories. All right, we've got time for one more question, and we'll see if we can fit this in before the 15-minute mark. Felipe says, I'm play second row. Oh, he's a tall bastard. Let's put this here. Let's add it to the... There we go. 198 centimeters, 102 kilos, 19 years old. Nice. Good stats, mate. Would you recommend drop fat or maintain weight? I feel strong, but not very fast. No, I would just work... if I was you, I would, again, rugby-muscle.com/team, I would work on your strength. I would probably maintain that weight. I'd look at maybe slowly even gaining weight, but also then working on your speed, working on your power, working on your strength. Again, if you feel strong but not very fast, that can be speed. So, spend some time working on speed, which we'll do in Team Rugby Muscle, but also spend time working on your conditioning. A lot of forwards, I notice, are, if you take them for 1 or 2 sprints as fast as they can, they're not too far off the backs at all, if not like keeping up with them and sometimes beating them. But the fact is, a lot of forwards will get through quite a lot of work, rucking and scrumming and doing all that dog work, that they're just more gassed. So they don't have space or time to see the spaces to go on these sprinting runs. Whereas actually, if you just get fitter, that might give you a chance to express that speed even better. But I would say I wouldn't recommend dropping fat, particularly as a 19-year-old. I would just focus on, like, you can drop overall body fat percentage just by getting more muscle, but you're not actually going to like make a cut necessarily, right? As a second row, like, you just need to be big and strong. And as long as you can jump in the line out high, well enough, and you're going to be fine. 102 kilos, no one's going to have a problem lifting you. So I would just really work on getting as explosive and as strong as possible and as fit as possible, whilst potentially working more on speed. But I would just make sure you're fueled enough. I wouldn't get any lighter than 102 kilos. But I mean, just saying that for that height. But again, it would depend on how you play. I just wouldn't off that information, I wouldn't necessarily look at focusing on losing weight or losing fat. I would say the speed and the power like working on that stuff is going to have more bang for your buck than just losing some weight. And losing that weight is going to potentially compromise some extra strength and power gains that you can make by making sure you're fueled enough for your training sessions. Okay, that will wrap up this fun edition of the Rugby Muscle May live Q&A. Thank you guys so much for joining. If you've made it to the end of the podcast and you haven't given us a thumbs up, what are you doing? Give us a thumbs up. This video will be re-uploaded so that it's all consistent, because these live videos don't come up on the feed for some reason. It's also, obviously, you made it to the end of the podcast. If you're listening on podcasts, give us that 5-star review. That really does help us out. Share the show with a teammate. Share Rugby Muscle with a teammate. That also makes a big difference. That's how we all grow together. That's how we all get better together. I hope that that's the approach that you can make. I hope that you can listen to the advice that I'm giving, take it on board, and really enjoy your game more. Play better rugby. Just enjoy your game more. Be more fulfilled, because it's just, you get a much better experience by playing better rugby, by doing the right things, not by just sacrificing and hustling, but by doing the most efficient, effective training, not wasting your time. Speaking of which, let's finish this podcast there. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.